being here, guys. We're at, right at the top of the hour. So we'll wait just a little while here and let the room fill up. We just really opened it up at this point. So as you guys might have known, because you might have been sitting there waiting for us. So Vivian, good to see you. Vivian, sorry about the confusion on the time. You emailed me yesterday and said, hey, you said it was at 2:00 and it's at noon, right? Sorry. I'd like to think I'm perfect. I'm not. Far from it. So, and if you guys can hear it, like I've been sick, I feel better, but my voice has not recovered yet. So Carmine, sorry about that, man. Listen, Carmine, I'm pumped to get your story.
You've heard it enough from me, right? So you can
I know.
almost recite it.
But you guys are doing some really great things at Cornerstone. I love the peer-to-peer stuff. So I'll bring that up. We'll talk about that. The value of this network that you've built. No, I'm stoked on what you guys are doing. It's fun to work with you. You're progressive in your mindset. So this is going to be a fun conversation. We'll give it a couple minutes before we dive in.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Hey, just want to make sure everybody can hear us, right? So, sometimes it feels like we're talking into a void. So in the chat, if you would, just kind of give me a yes or a thumbs up if you can hear us okay. Frank, good to see you, man. So in chat or all right, cool. Jeff, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Awesome. Carmine, sounds like we're coming across loud and clear. I'm glad we didn't do this yesterday, Carmine. I could barely talk.
Oh, good. We would have had to change it.
Like it was super raspy. So yeah, very cool. All right. So hey Frank. Yeah, Frank, you and Carmine know each other. All right, Jay, thank you, man. Appreciate it. Very cool. All right. Well, just to keep this thing cruising, like where's everybody in? Where are you located? Jay, thank you. Great mustache. I appreciate it, man. It's part of my gimmick. Let me show you something that's in my pocket. I think it's the last one of these. So my wife went out and made stickers. Scottsdale, Arizona. Jeff, I am a proud graduate of the esteemed educational institution, Northern Arizona University.
Scottsdale is one of my favorite places in this country.
Yep, Scottsdale.
Man, I love it out there.
Yeah, I grew up in Wisconsin, moved to Tucson, Arizona. I went, this is way too hot, and I like snowboarding. So I moved up to Flagstaff, finished my degree up there. So that was good. Very cool. Well, I'll tell you what, yeah, come here and spend money, Jeff. Okay, man. Okay. Before we jump in, Carmine, I'll tell you, and I think I told Jay earlier this week, I got an awesome trip planned for January and February.
Where are you going?
I'm in Florida now. I'm married a Florida girl, but I'm a ski bum. So leave here January 14th, meeting some buddies in Park City. I got a little camp that's on the pickup truck. So we'll drive across Texas, see some clients, play some golf, snowboard in Park City, snowboard in South Tahoe, and then Mount Bachelor in Bend, Oregon, and then Mount Hood.
Been there.
Yeah. Awesome. Then Jackson Hole, and then the long trip back to Florida. So take about 3 weeks.
Beautiful.
Yeah, seeing clients and working along the way. Jeff, don't I know? I was, I think I graduated in 97. Flagstaff is awesome. I worked at the Arizona Snow Bowl during college, and I did play a lot of disc golf while I was up there. So hippie golf, if you will. So awesome. Well, Carmine, people aren't here to hear my history and my college and things like that and the fun stuff.
I'm certainly not here to hear that. No, you got that right,
dude. Let's get into it because you got a lot. We got a lot to talk about, right? So, we got 55 minutes scheduled. I don't know that we'll get that deep, but who knows? People have some good questions for us. Here's the basis for our conversation, right? So I've been working with advisors in some capacity for about 25 years. I started with websites for the wirehouses way back when. That's evolved into a lot of content marketing, a lot of social media marketing. Here's one trend that I think you can speak to as well as anybody else in this industry. This industry, and maybe, more specifically in the last, say, 10 years or so, our industry has evolved from, wirehouse to a more independent model dramatically. In fact, if you take a look at FINRA's numbers are actually up the last year or two, but there was a trend in FINRA's numbers like falling off a cliff for 10 years. I don't know specifically, but if we did the research, it's like 8 or 10 years. I've got some ideas as to what that's about, but I want your take on it. That's why you're here, man, is you're the expert in this stuff. why is our industry moving to an independent model away from the wirehouse and the big firms that, have driven it for so long?
I think access to information is probably the biggest thing. The growth in podcasting and interviews like this in the last 10 years have grown substantially. I think advisors are more in the know about the independent channel. I think that's really number one. And that's what kind of, started my progression toward the indie side. And the other one is like 10 years ago, it wasn't as easy to go independent, right? So now today, there's many more firms like ours are independent fee-only RIAs that are out there that advisors can join, or they can start their own. The barrier to entry is much easier than it was a decade ago.
Yeah, no doubt.
And I started in the industry 20 years ago, and there was no one knew what independent channels were. Back then, it was very hard. So yeah, I just think access information and the barrier to entry is much easier today.
Yeah, very good. And I'm just replying to a chat in here. Kevin's in Canada. He's wondering if this is applicable to him as well. Kevin,
sure, I just came back from Alberta, Canada last week. You are more than welcome to join.
Yeah, love Alberta.
Yeah,
I'm like an honorary Canadian. I lived in North Vancouver for about 5 or 6 years. So
that doesn't make you Canadian. Can you play hockey? Let me get you on skates. If you can play hockey, you can be
hilariously. And I don't want to digress too deeply, but I will for a second. Hilariously, I started playing hockey at 30 in North Vancouver with these kids, Carmine, that grew up on skates.
Yep.
So I was like the token American. It was shinny hockey. They would, they'd bang pucks off my shin guards and I'd get a goal. That's the way I could do it. Right. But, so I did, I really, I tried to embrace, man. So yeah, a little bit. And I grew up in Wisconsin, so I skated my whole life, but these guys were amazing. So, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think that it is, there's a technical revolution that we'll talk about, right? Where it used to be, Carmine, if you wanted the best technology, you had to work with the biggest firms with the deepest pockets, right? And so that was the big draw. But now, as fintech has exploded, and you've got awesome technology that, frankly, I believe now the open market is better than the firm-driven technology, because what happens is those become projects, right? Like, I'll speak specifically. I know, like Wells Fargo, for example. Wells Fargo, just because I work with some Wells Fargo advisors and some finance advisors, they had a big marketing technology push in the last, say, 12 to 18 months, and they needed it, right? So they've caught up a lot to the open market in that moment. But the next time they're going to revisit that is maybe 5 or 6 years from now. And the open market is going to scream past it at that point, So I think in addition to having many more options of firms like Cornerstone that we'll talk about, I agree with you, man. It's open market technology has really driven the opportunity for advisors to have just as good a technology in the open market as at the wirehouses. So yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, very cool. There's several reasons that people go independent, and there's several concerns when people go independent. Let's talk about compliance a little bit. How did compliance, when you made the move and started Cornerstone, how did compliance change for you? And then furthermore, how has that evolved, more recently? How is the compliance evolving in the independent space?
So I think there's a misconception where, we talk to advisors that are looking to us as options on a weekly basis. And there is a misconception that on the indie side, it's like the Wild West. We can do whatever we want, right? And that's not the case. I want to be very clear. There's no magic pill that alleviates you from any compliance requirements. The biggest difference is the large insurance company I was affiliated with for 17 years, and most of the big firms, their compliance mantra is we're going to allow X to the lowest common denominator advisor we have. Okay. And I was subject to that in many ways. The narrative today at Cornerstone, I started as chief compliance officer. We now have an attorney who's chief compliance officer here at Cornerstone. When an advisor asks for maybe, I want to use XYZ technology, the first question we ask is, how does it benefit the client?
Awesome.
That's the first question. And that's the major difference between the tech and the compliance guardrails that we had prior were all around what was that firm's main mission. And the firm I was affiliated with, they want to sell product. So if that technology or that service or that compliance question doesn't sell product again to the rainbow, it's probably a no, probably a hard no.
Yeah.
And I saw that in my 17 years there many times. So we're fueled by client impact here. So hey, just tell us, how does this benefit the client? How do we protect ourselves as a firm? Go for it. Once we check all the compliance boxes. That's the biggest issue, is that nothing's to the lowest common denominator here, or in most independent firms. How do we use it to impact the client's results?
Yeah, love it. So I'm keeping up on Q&A, and I'm keeping up on chat, Carmine. So if I look like I'm distracted, it's me typing back to somebody.
Oh no worries.
So I think there's firms in our industry, right, that have a captive and an independent side. Right. I brought up Wells, Raymond James falls into that, Ameriprise falls into that, right? What I find there too is, even like in Wells Finance or Raymond James Financial Services, the lowest common denominator isn't even an independent advisor, right? You're an independent advisor with your own book of business at this firm, but you're subject to the exact same compliance as the riskiest Wells Fargo advisor or Raymond James advisor, even though and so that I've seen make an incredible impact on. You're an independent advisor with an independent broker dealer being governed like a completely captive advisor.
And here's another thing too. Firms, and I'm in multiple mastermind groups with other enterprise leaders like myself, and being affiliated with a large one and having friends at wirehouses. There's two ways a firm can look at compliance. One is, hey, sign these 87,000 documents that hold us harmless. You're on your own, right? And that's hey, we're going to wash our hands if you ever do anything bad, and we'll throw you under the bus. And I have a good friend of mine, that happened to at the old insurance company I was at, and they threw her under the bus, even though the recordings and emails prove that the BD made the mistake, and it went on her record and everything was pretty bad. The difference between the bigger firms that have to manage thousands of advisors and smaller indies like Cornerstone is we don't hold harmless agreements. We educate the advisors on what to do, and more importantly, what not to do, and how to keep themselves out of trouble. That puts me in the same boat as the advisor, as the CEO. It's like, hey, I got your back, right? Don't do anything stupid. Here's what not to do. But if you have questions, ask. We'll fix the problem. So we're really a partner with the advisor when it comes to compliance, and we won't let anyone out there to hang them out there to dry.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. There's a question from Jeff here, and as comfortable as you are, you're in a public forum right here, Carmine. So you can take this up with Jeff later if you want to. But Jeff's curious the size of Cornerstone, AUM. What do you guys manage? If you want to have that conversation in a public forum, cool. That's but also reserve the right to get to Jeff privately if you want to afterwards.
You know what? Yeah, Jeff. Put your email in there, and I'll respond to you via email. And then if you want to have a conversation, we can have a conversation.
Awesome.
Because Charlie gets cranky if we get off script here. You don't want to see him cranky.
Do I seem like I'm on a script?
No.
Good. I am. I know you and I, we've discussed topics we're going to talk about, but I want to be as loose as possible, and that's the best conversation comes from that. Talk to me about, one of the things that I love that Cornerstone's doing that I think creates a lot of value if folks are interested in working with Cornerstone, or if they're interested in doing their own thing and staying where they are. I think one of the great things that can be done is peer-to-peer discussion. Right. So that's one of the very first things I learned about you when we first met each other was you've got, the number of advisors that you've got, and every month there's a peer meeting. Everybody's independent, right? Everybody's independent but connected. Let's say that, right? Talk a little bit about the value of that peer-to-peer. What do your advisors gain from that? I'll let you go off on that.
I'll tell you the one thing. And I've been like this for many years. Personal development is very important to me. I mean, I have a personal development budget. My staff all has a PD budget every year that we need to go learn and do something. I go to more meetings and masterminds and 10x, you name it, right? What I have found through these mastermind meetings with the advisors is, and just give you an idea, every advisor will present an issue, a concern, an opportunity, and then the other advisors will all take turns and give our feedback. What has come out of these meetings? So let me give you an example. Last year, now it's a little selfish for me as the operator of the entity to sit there and listen, because I want to see common threads of, hey, where are a lot of the questions coming from? And 2 years ago, multiple advisors had the same issue. Hey, I'm just having issues asking for, we do a lot of financial planning here, that we lead with planning. But there are a couple legacy advisors, right, that joined us like, hey, I just could never get over that hump on charging fees for planning. So after that meeting, I set up 2 or 3, I think we did 3 trainings on how I present financial plans, how do we present what a client would get, how to price it, all this. Now there's one advisor with 27 years in our Connecticut office. We can't stop him from charging fees. He will not take a client on unless they pay a planning fee. Yeah. And he says that new relationship is it's so much more rewarding than a transactional one where he lived for 20 some odd years. So for me, I'm sitting there looking for the common threads, but what has happened is that these advisors now, 1 + 1 can equal 4 in our industry, as long as we have the same cultural mindset, integrity, all those things. They're now all working together on things. And it's created this whole other environment of impact and change and help. And it's it didn't happen overnight, but seeing that culture grow is very rewarding. So I love the masterminds. I flew in my business coach. We did a full day this year. So yeah, I give as much developmental resources to the advisors, and just about everyone grabs it and runs with it. And because I know how much of an impact personal development has been on me, I think everybody should have a dollar amount of 5 to 10% of top line should be devoted to personal development, personal and business.
Love it. Love it. I know even your relationship with Jocko, right? You can speak to that a little bit. I mean, I know that's a big part of it.
Energy drink right there. Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know he had an energy drink.
He does. Yeah. They're great.
Oh man, there we go. Brand. That's awesome. I love it. We got a question from Jake we talked technology a little bit, Carmen, but let's get a little more specific. Talk to me a little bit about technology stack at Cornerstone. Advisors that work with you, do they all use the same technology? Do they have options? Speak a little bit around that.
We have a couple. Our tech map has grown. It's pretty colorful, and I have no issue sharing it with people. If you want me to send it to you, just put your email in the chat and I'll send it out to you. The good thing there's a good and a bad on building an RA from scratch, which I did back in 2020. The bad thing is you have to build an RA from scratch. The good thing is you get to pick the tech, every piece of technology. And we just added 2 more this year. Our tech stack is all about efficiency, starting with our CRM, which is WealthBox, is kind of our backbone. An advisor has a choice on financial planning software. If you want to use eMoney or Money Guide Pro, we support either, it depends on what the advisor's preference is. We use Income Lab as well for retirement distribution planning for clients, Holista Plan for tax planning. I'm looking at our text. Advice Pay does all of our financial planning fees and contracting. DocuSign, where we custody with Schwab. We were with TD, we custody with Schwab. Black Diamond is our client experience portal, which is by far probably one of our best technologies that we offer on a client impact perspective. But I want to hear from advisors. Like one advisor brought up Pantera. So Pantera is a tech that we can actually manage held away assets, because they're in the corporate world where those people may not have a lot of balances outside of their company plan, but their company plan is their biggest asset. And sending us their statements and being more reactive than proactive wasn't really checking the box for them. So they came to me with Pantera. I said, how does this benefit the client? Well, this is what we can do. Great. Let's demo it. And long story short, we're onboarding and we're adding new accounts on a weekly basis, because that advisor group was able to exhibit to me and our chief compliance officer, hey, we should get this. And now you can't get that at an insurance company, or a wirehouse won't allow their advisors to use that tech. Now we have a good value prop to a client. Hey, we can help you with all of it. It all matters to you, and it all matters to us too. So our tech stack is ever growing. And we changed CRMs a year and a half in because we just found a better option. I am not adverse to change and cost. If it benefits the enterprise and it benefits the advisors and their clients, we're going to do it.
Well, that's no minor undertaking. Like I do, we've been through a few different CRMs. In fact, we just moved to a platform called High Level, which I love. And that was off of we run a platform called SharpSpring, which advisors can use, but it's not good for clients. It's a good marketing platform. Constant Contact bought them. Both platforms went downhill after that. And so we made a move to High Level, and that's moving 25,000 contacts. And how many funnels we had rolling and landing pages and stuff like that. It's a major undertaking.
One of the biggest things with us, with tech and all of our partners, is we have to have support. So let me give you an example. We pay extra for WealthBox support. Sure. We have an advisor that's coming on with us. WealthBox will be at whatever CRM they're in. WealthBox will work with them, and every advisor that's come on after we implemented WealthBox, their environment was set up before they even started with us. Cool. All their notes, all their tasks, all their client info, data, all that's done already. Yeah. So that's one of the biggest apprehensions is I have all this data and there's all this change happening. Well, my team is going to make sure that all that's done. And when I say my team, our tech partners are extensions of our team. And that's one of our requirements. Hey, when we have a new person, how are you going to help us? Yeah. And if we don't like the answer, we'll move on.
Yeah. Yeah. And the beauty is there's options. Right?
Oh, there's too many options. Actually, I need my cousin Vinny menu, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I need like the easy. Now there's just too many options.
Yeah, there is. There sure is.
Yeah.
You were a guest on RIA Collective, a handful of months ago. I want to talk a little bit about fiduciary responsibility, right? We kind of dabbled in it a little bit. I will share with you why I started that podcast. And I've told you this story before, but many of our listeners probably haven't heard it. So I had a couple guys, friends of friend, that were like, hey, you need a podcast. What the hell am I going to talk about? Right. Sales and marketing, man. Okay. That doesn't inspire me a whole lot. And then I coach advisors from a bunch of different firms. I'll leave the advisor name out of it. I'll leave the firm name out of it. I coach a CFP, offices out of Manhattan, $2 to $3 million minimums. And in a coaching engagement, that's twice a month. Right. And I get on the phone with this guy and he says, hey, Charlie, I landed 2 new clients since our last call in the last 2 weeks. So to me, that's, minimum $4 million in assets, right? And so awesome, man. Good job. Tell me about it. The problem is they're a little smaller. They're 250 and 300, he says. Now he's with a major wirehouse, big firm, right? CFP, I mentioned. So he's got a fiduciary responsibility anyway, just with the designation, right? And not that he shouldn't have one anyway, without the designation. And I said, what the heck are you doing, man? Like, you're not set up to service $250,000 clients. And he said, yeah, well, the firm gives me 2%, a 2% bonus if I close 6 households in X time. And I said, how shitty is that? What do you mean? You can't service these people. They shouldn't be with you, right? This is not a good fit. Yeah, well, 2%. I called the podcast guys and I was like, we got to do something. I mean, this is a problem. Industry, right? It's like, I know what the podcast needs to be about. And so RIA Collective, for those of you who haven't run into it yet, please check it out, riacollective.com. All it really is interviewing guys like Carmine, heads of RIAs, some wirehouse, some legal representatives, attorneys that represent people in that move from wirehouse to an independent space. About 50 episodes out there. The sole purpose of that is to try and help these people who are in a position at a Morgan or a Merrill or a UBS or whatever, and they know it's not the right fit for them. Right. Carmine, I want to learn more about when you're moved from the major insurance company into a completely fee-based independent space. Talk about, I don't know, man, maybe the purity of that relationship versus what it was prior.
You want to talk about a rabbit hole, Charlie? You have a couple hours, I can talk about it, but I can tell you, I'm a CFP and I had to give a disclosure to every client. This was a compliance requirement. I have a copy of it. And it says, as a CFP, I have what most would consider a conflict of interest, and this is why. And there was bullets. And it didn't rub me the right way, as hard as it was for me to get CFP. And I said, this makes no sense. And that was one of the few flags that flew.
Yeah.
But think of being affiliated with an insurance company. Their sole intention is to sell product. That's what they do. There's nothing wrong with it. We all need insurance, right? But if I'm acting in if I'm a fiduciary based on what the SEC defines as a fiduciary, if my compensation is based on how much product I sell, doesn't matter what it is, there's a conflict of interest, no doubt. And I don't care if the SEC feels that a disclosure is enough. It's not enough because clients don't know, right? So every year you had a sales requirement. You had to do a certain amount of commission for their core product line, which is life, annuity, long-term care, or whatever. And if you didn't, you could lose the benefits for you and your family. Your payout goes way down. And I'll even give you another one that's even just an eye-opener to anyone that does not have that exposure. In order to become an advisor with that insurance company, you had to sell a certain amount of their product for 2 consecutive years. You had to do enough non-fiduciary sales as an insurance agent to basically be elevated to an advisor before they would allow you to become a fiduciary, which boggles my mind to this day how that's allowed, but I don't make the rules.
Yeah.
I wanted to hang a sign in my office, our old office, when I was still with this insurance company, and it says clients' needs above all else. Real big in our reception area.
Yeah.
For clients to see. And I was told, no, you can't. So the first thing we did, we built out our new office. That sign hangs. It's on my video on my homepage and on our website. First thing we ordered was that sign. That's right. Cool. And that's what that sign should be allowed in any advisor's office that has a fiduciary capacity to a client. Yeah. End of story. I mean, there's a lot of bird lines out there. There's a lot of, well, it's allowed because of it. And I get it. That, for every law, there's someone finding a way around it. I get it. But that wasn't for me. And every year there was another requirement. And today we're not fueled by product. We don't sell anything here. Yeah. We're fueled by impact. And what the funny thing happened, Charlie, was when I was having the conversations with my clients when I did leave the insurance company, go independent, and the narrative around the why I was leaving that insurance company, that strengthened the relationships of those. Half the clients didn't even know I had an affiliation with that insurance company. They're like, because they didn't own any of their products, because I was not a big insurance writer. I just did enough to check the box. But those relationships saying, hey, here's what advisors do, like at the wirehouses, at insurance companies, but here's what we do today. And clients got it. That's why we have between the 3 advisors that left me and 2 other ones, 99.4% retention when we transitioned, which is unheard of.
Yeah, that's huge.
Because we always did the right thing for the client. And then the narrative of the why followed, and it strengthened those relationships. And we had our best AUM year in the year we transitioned because of those conversations. Yeah. No doubt.
That's cool. There's a lot of reward in that, huh?
Oh yeah. It's just validation that the clients understand why we went through the pain. We didn't get a check to go to a wirehouse or another insurance company. It cost money to go independent, but we didn't do it for us. We did it for the clients, and it was very clear.
Yeah, that's cool. You're a good dude, Carmine.
Good. Let me call my wife. Let me get my wife on the phone. You can tell her that.
Record that. Hey, I want to share another example of somebody I interviewed on the podcast. A young lady, and I say young lady, probably late 30s, early 40s. Got started. I can name the firms, but got started at Merrill. I think actually got started at Morgan as an assistant. Got licensed at Merrill. Went independent with Ameriprise. And was happy in those environments, right? So I'm not trying to say that the people that like that environment, I'm not trying to bag on that whatsoever, right? What happened to her was her husband actually got sick, right? So she couldn't keep up the pace of life that she had, a professional life, just based on the fact that they had 2 little kids. Her husband was sick; he's better now, but she started her RIA simply because she had lifestyle needs that could not be accommodated in the environment she was in, right? She had working with a team at Ameriprise that expected her to put in 60 or 70 hours a week, right? And she had more like 25 or 30 to give. I don't, you're a hard charging dude. And that's awesome. Not everybody is that way. Talk about the ability to kind of create the lifestyle that you're looking for in an independent space. If you're in a wirehouse right now, where you're being driven to, to hit numbers that frankly require 60, 70 hours you're working.
Mhm.
Yeah.
One of the biggest changes that the advisors will attest to that have come, we've liberated 11 so far in the three and just over 3 years. And they all came from constrained environments, right? So the biggest changes today they look back on, one of them is just personally how much better their lives are. Let me give you an example. One advisor could never unplug for a week and go to the Jersey Shore with his family because he just had to do, well, guess what our alpha team did, which our internal service team that helps the advisors do all their meeting prep and client interactions. He was able to shut his email off and actually enjoy time with his family, right? And he has 2 young kids. I myself, and you know this, Charlie, I go on to 2 sabbaticals a year and my email gets shut off, but I'm reading 7 to 10 books and I'm coming back with great ideas to then give to the team. We harbor that environment. We provide that environment to our advisors, being able to disconnect. You can't work on an engine while the car's running. You got to shut it down. I help each advisor build out their strategic calendar. Okay, let's segment your clients. Okay, well, your A's are going to get reviews in, let's do January and September, and we'll whiteboard that out in our conference room. I do it with every single advisor every December. We do a client count. Let's recategorize and let's map out the year. Because when you go in these surge windows of like 2 or 3 weeks of reviews, now you get a month off. I don't mean a month off where you just go to the movies and watch Netflix all day or whatever. But now you have a month of business development or unplug and go on your sabbatical. Dan Sullivan says it, and I'm in his 10X program, and the more time you disconnect and rejuvenate, the more successful you'll be. And I thought that was very counterintuitive, coming from a family that came here from Italy with nothing, and all they knew was to work. Yeah. And it's not. I think last year I took 4 months off, and this year around the same. But that's years of making sure that the capabilities, the tech, and we have redundancies, but I need that time off, because if you keep on hammering, look, when I'm on, like there's no nonsense. I'm focused in, I'm dialed in, great. But when I disconnect, I don't want to hear anything. I need my time, but it makes me a better husband, a better father, and a better leader. We had a mastermind last month, and one of the advisors says, your team is so good. I can't get over how efficient they are, how fast they're able to service whatever their needs are with their clients. It's great. I made the decision years ago to change who I am as a leader, and that goes to personal development. And granted, my team is great, but it started with me changing, because I had to change the way I thought, the way I led, and accessing them to developmental tools. We do weekly trainings with Echelon Front at a leadership consultancy. And it's all bled down, but it started with me making that decision of I need to be a better leader. And Dan Sullivan's right. The more you're able to step back, rejuvenate, and think, the better you're going to be as a person. So this isn't about just, hey, how your numbers look. Hey, how's everything at home? You need some time off. So yeah, I'm very, and that's why all of our staff people here, unlimited PTO time. Because I know how important it is to me, and I'd be selfish if not to think it would be important and impactful to them. So that's the culture we have here. And that's something that anyone on the outside looking in, once they know, they look under the hood. We're much different than most firms because of that. It's our culture.
That's a hard transition for people. Now, Jay did want us to know, it was just to you and I, it wasn't to everybody, but he wants us to know that you do have a great team.
Of course he did. He's my COO, by the way.
Exactly. So Jay is part of that team. So, and the unlimited PTO, that's why he gets to play so many golf courses.
That's exactly right. Yes.
Yeah, very cool. Well, I get an opportunity to interact with a handful of your team members on a consistent basis, and I agree. Man, you know, especially with Jay and Tom, and those are my two main points of contact. Those guys are, those guys are prepared for every meeting. You know, they're professional in their approach, more so than I am probably. You know, maybe I just got a little too casual attitude. I don't know. Jay can teach me something here and there. Carmen, but I echo that, man. The building the infrastructure, and I know you spent a lot of time and a lot of years making that happen so that you can enjoy time away to rejuvenate, if you will, to bring new ideas back. And I actually wrote down, because I'll use this, you can't work on a car. You can't work on an engine when the car is running. Right.
You got to shut it down.
That's it, man.
But being on that hamster wheel at a wirehouse or an insurance company, I call this elevator music, Charlie, because from July 1st to June 30th, there was elevator music playing as I'm interacting with clients and running the practice day to day. And by the way, elevator music, it's never top of mind. We always hear it when we're in an elevator. We never like it. It's never good.
Right.
So the elevator music that plays, like, hey, you may be having a good week, a good month, but where are you on the leaderboard to make sure you do this amount of commission in order to keep your payout, keep your benefits? And that elevator music would play. When I sent my resignation letter in, that elevator music stopped and it'll never be back. And it's literally like rucking and I just decided to put the sack down. I just decided to put the backpack down and now walk without that backpack on. And and that's the one thing every advisor had said, leaving those constrained environments and not just here, anywhere. The one thing you'll hear in common, I guarantee, is I wish I did it sooner. That is the number one thing that everyone has ever said when they went independent.
I will echo that. And, like we've got 50 episodes of RA Collective recorded. We actually took a hiatus on it because we had a bunch of stuff backed up. But we'll start recording again in January. I will say the exact same thing. Every independent advisor, every RIA, IAR that I've spoken to has echoed those words. I wish I'd have done it sooner. Yeah, for sure. So now you mentioned, and I didn't know it until we got on here, just kind of, before we went live, you mentioned a book you had coming out this week, or this coming year.
Yep.
But excuse me, the voice, Carmine. Sorry.
That's all right. Actually, you don't sound that bad.
Yeah. Well, talk a little bit about the book if you're open to that. I know it's a little sneak preview, but
yeah.
Yeah.
So we're writing a book through Forbes. Me and a good friend of mine who owns an independent RIA out in Sonoma, California, a good friend of mine, Darren. We had very similar stories. I left an insurance company. He left the wirehouse. We both had legal issues, which is not the norm when you break away. We were the minorities in that. It was more personal than it was standard operating procedure for these companies. And not only did we survive, we thrived because of that. And him and I have been in a mastermind meeting for years, a mastermind group together. It gets together four times a year. And we were talking one day, and a third party, we're comparing our situations, and the third party said, "You guys should write a book. This is interesting." And long story short, Forbes, we applied to Forbes, they picked it up, and it should be coming out Q2 next year.
Awesome.
And it's basically kind of two parts. One, why an advisor should be looking to go independent, of the whys. And then there's the how. Yeah. Okay. 30,000 foot on the how, because every firm that advisors are breaking away from are different. So there's different protocols, everything, but there's enough in that book. If an advisor gets that book, then they probably have the right mindset that they want to go independent. If an advisor needs to know they have a parent firm, or they love that leaderboard, and they love the shitty trips they send you on every year, if you love that stuff, independent may not be for you.
Yeah, that's it.
I say this in the book, Charlie. It's so true. The insurance company I was at, I had golden handcuffs on, right? They're golden because there's money involved, right? There's two types of people, and I'll know the type within 5 minutes of our intro call. One person looks and goes, "Wow, these are nice golden handcuffs. Look how nice they are. They're shiny. They're worth all this money. This is great." And then there's me. Yeah. I got to get these off. I don't care what color they are. I got to get these handcuffs off. Yeah. And just by the tonality of the conversation, I'll know within a few minutes what that advisor's thinking.
Yeah.
So
their mindset.
It's interesting.
Yeah. So Social Advisors is 10 years old. And I worked for one big marketing company prior to that. And prior to that one, I ran a sales team for a large company that's now part of Broadridge. I was miserable every day. I mean, listen, there were highlights there for sure.
Hmm.
But it seemed like a burden every day, right? It was a constant grind. I felt like I was building it for somebody else most of the time. So I feel you. Like there were certainly I could have continued to climb that corporate positioning, but it never felt pure and it never felt right. So a little different, right? Outside the industry and serving it versus being starting my own RIA as you have. But certainly it was a leap that needed to happen. Um, so so Jason asked, you brought up legal. We haven't really commented on legal, but Jason asked to comment more on the legal aspects of that departure. I can speak a little bit to it just because we've interviewed plenty of attorneys along the way. Can you speak a little bit to your experience? I mean, don't compromise yourself. I don't want that to happen.
Oh, no, there's nothing there. I would tell you the first thing you do if you're thinking about leaving is have your contract reviewed by an attorney that is familiar in the RA space.
Yes, for sure.
Every firm is different. My experience was the only one that I know of from the largest insurance company in the country. And it was, again, personal. Had nothing to do with protocol. They wanted to make an example of me. And it was probably one of the best things that's ever happened to me. And I wouldn't change a thing. I'd do it all over again because there was a way I could have avoided it, but I didn't. Yeah. Again, testament to, I'll never leave a person behind. And that's the reason why. Talked to Darren. He left a wirehouse, similar situation, different circumstances. Get your contract reviewed and get real professional guidance. And in my book, Broken Dealer, we have a whole chapter on this, right? And it's going to be around know your non-compete, know your timing, it's going to be very clear on when you can tell clients you're leaving. But I'm going to tell you this, if you're thinking of leaving, don't use your company email about any discussions around leaving, and do not tell anyone at your firm. Yes. Those are the two things that I can say with certainty. I don't care what firm you're at. Those are two that you can absolutely take home. Because once you leave, the people you thought were your friends, some of them will not be your friend anymore. Yeah. And for multiple reasons. And my story is another hour of what happened with me, but it's very clear on who looked at you like a cash register and who actually valued your friend. I have many relationships that are great that are still at that old insurance company, which I'll never get. These are lifelong relationships. And then there's other ones. If you're not ringing that cash register or getting someone's bonus, they don't care. You're a number. Yeah. And so those are two things I would tell you. Don't email about it through company email, and do not tell anyone at your firm about your potential departure. And the rest of it get reviewed, and just be careful. Yeah. The non-compete world is changing, though, actually, where it's and depending on what state as well, like New Jersey's a right to work state, like California, very anti non-compete-ish, but get some legal representation and to have them review and have them give you their optics.
Yeah, and of course, like don't do anything stupid. Don't try to take a bunch of data. I mean, computer forensics and stuff like that. They catch all that stuff, right?
They find everything out. And also, here's a tip: you probably know, if you're at a firm, other people that have left and went independent. And this is what I did when I decided to go independent. I called 5 or 6 people that left that insurance company, went on the indie side. I said, I don't want to hear the good. I know the good, right? Yeah. What's the bad? What's the worst thing that happened? What's the one thing you wish you didn't do or you did differently? And I wrote them down. And that's why not only did our transition go flawless, but the 11 we've done, we've had no issues. Yeah. My team, we have a whole transition process workflow, and we use a Microsoft project board with the advisor that's bolting on. So we have it basically, I wouldn't say cookie cut. We have the template built already of what needs to get done and when. So it alleviates a lot of that uncertainty from the advisor that wants to leave, but doesn't know, hey, how does my CRM data move over? How fast will the money come over? When does billing start? When am I going to get paid? That's important stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome, Carmine. Listen, you're such a good resource, dude. You've been through it. It got ugly. That's probably good from a learning experience.
It was great. Wouldn't change it.
And certainly it's going to benefit anybody that's here that wants to reach out to you to learn more about that. If they're thinking about making a departure, Certainly Cornerstone creates a really soft place. You've been through it. You've helped 11 people through it. There's a soft landing there if someone wants to reach out to you and be part of the firm.
Sure.
Yeah, man, we don't, there's the questions are, we don't have any more questions. And listen, Carmine, I just, I thank you for our friendship and our professional relationship, and appreciate you taking time to enlighten the folks that joined us today.
Thank you, Charlie. Always good to see you. Hope your voice gets better and get on those slopes, will you?
I will, man. I will. Lots of pictures on LinkedIn coming.
Yes, sir.
All right. Cheers, Carmine.
All right, Charlie. Have a good one.
Thank you, everybody who showed up.
Take care.
See ya.
Bye.